I always call you Gaffer for some reason. So
That's all right. That's right. You're comfortable with that.
Yeah,
So
yeah. I always,
yeah.
I tricks a respect thing. Everyone I've known
Yeah.
just call him Gaffer. So.
Yeah.
So, hello, Gaffer.
Hi, Jab.
As always, I just always respect you and I'll call you Gaffer. So not gonna change now. Pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
So just want to chat about our experiences. We've spent so much time together in recent years, and want to go back to the beginning when we first met and in the youth team.
Yeah, I mean, when I knew I was going to be doing this, your mind goes back to 2000, 23 years ago. The day that it's crazy that I stopped playing and was given the role of under-19s manager. It was in the time, if you remember rightly, that the youth team was being split into two teams, 17s and 19s. Peter Johnson did the 17s, I did the 19s. And if I'm honest here, I think the best way to describe it is that we probably learnt together. I mean, I'd gone from just playing, had a few experiences as coaching, but minimal, and then was sort of through into the firing line of the youth job. When I got the youth job, it was quite interesting because that season we actually took about 10 of the young players, or Tommy Taylor took 10 of the young players into being pros in the team because he felt they could play for the under-19s. I think you might have been 16 at the time. I don't know if you was the first year or second year. I can't quite place that at the moment, but all I know is that we had a team with you and Evan McLean as the main strikers. You had people like Billy Jones, Glenn Morris, Brendan McAhern, Simon Downer.
Yes, Simon is a Downer,
yeah. And all these had a little taste on the first team, and some of you went on to have good careers. And for me, I look back on it now with absolutely pleasure because it was 14 months. We only lost one game between us. That first season we won a league and cup double. The final being at the Millennium Stadium where Billy Jones scored a penny for us to win. And my memory of you at the time was that you was a lovable giant. You was always smiling. I've never seen to the day I see you now. I see you today. You've always got that smile on your face, but I also see a big raw talent, and it was raw. There was some refining to be done. But for me, from the first moment I see you, I always thought that this boy's going to have a career. It's just about taking that step over the threshold of that career and going from being a youth team player to being in and around the first team. So, yeah, they're great memories, mate.
Yeah, they are. And when you start reading off those names, your mind just goes back there and you're just like, yeah, some great guys, great memories. And I think the youth team itself, just had a great vibe, a great atmosphere. There was everyone got on. We had people that were just like moved over, like from Brendan and Daryl from Ireland, and we made everyone welcome. And I think that helped the way we projected and the way we went on to win games and everything.
Yeah, look, I've always said this, and I've maintained this throughout my 15 years of being a football coach stroke manager. The biggest thing for me was to get togetherness, work on the person's character. You've obviously got to know what you're doing in the coaching scenario, but for me, it's not the most important thing. It's about getting players that want to actually perform for you. I took that through the youth team days into being an assistant manager and a manager, and I think that if I look at the similarities between that youth team, that went on to be the first team for me that had success, and I look at the squad now, it's got similarities. Obviously, we've moved on 15 years, and you've got more staff and video analysis and all that type of stuff. And for me, as I say, the togetherness, and I was a learning coach. I think I just got, when I took the job, I just got my B licence. I started coaching at 30 in the Centre of Excellence, as it was then, and you was probably a young boy in there who I wouldn't have known so much. I did that while I was still a player, but for me, I'd always treat a player how I wanted to be treated. So managers that got best out of me as a player was people that were honest. They were strong, in terms of opinions, but someone that told me as it was and asked me how they wanted me to do it, but also give me the freedom to go and express myself.
Yeah. You were like that very much. You wanted players to express themselves. Yeah. I remember that.
I think you build a team on how you are as a player, and I was very I'm going to say maverick, but I was quite a difficult player to fit into a team sometimes. And I can remember people at the start, you know, people above me talking about you and saying, "Oh, he's raw," and he sometimes. You probably still do it now, but if you still play, you control the ball with the outside of your foot instead of the inside of your foot. And I used to say, some people, you've got to let them, the strength is their unpredictability. And if you take that away from a player, then you're losing the player. And I thought if I ever took that away from you and other people to express themselves, you know, I didn't want my back four to do what you did and Aaron did in the top. Like Tommy Morgan, little left winger, skill. It was important that I always think that people that allowed me to express myself, I played better for. So I tried to do that, and you was very much like that. You was, you know, but you was off the cuff sometimes. But you was a goal scorer, and whenever we played in that youth team, you caused people trouble. No one liked marking you. Yeah. And they say your unpredictability was your strength, not a weakness, in my opinion.
Yeah, I remember you writing that on a report, you know, and as you're saying that, I remember you writing it. I think we did end of season reports, and you said your unpredictability is your strength. And I think, especially when you're youngster, kind of learning that role, and in like youth football today, I think that rawness is what, you know, you can sort of like be taught how to be professional, but your rawness is like your special power. And sometimes you need to keep that, and I think you made that tell a lot with a lot of us, and we were successful for it.
I just think that you know, I used to talk about zones: red zone, orange zone, green zone. You know, in the green zone, go and express yourself. Do anything you think's right. I think if you start to, you can put coaching points into people, and it might be something like, Jab, you need to get into the box a little bit more. Jab, if you do this skill, can you get a shot away? I can remember all these things, but the main thing was that don't take away the strength. You know, but we all play this game because we love it, and we all play this game in a way that you've done since the day that you started. So don't try and convert people into something they're not. Give them coaching points, give them coaching ideas, but go and express their game on them coaching ideas. I mean, when it went first team and Dean come in, Dean Smith, it was a good mix, because Dean was more of a rigid type of, for his career, Dean was a solid centre half that knew the job. So when I looked at a game, I was thinking we can win this 1-5-4. Dino would say to me, Gaffer, you've only got one player at the back. You know what I mean? And that mix shows well. And I think at youth team level as well, I think it's even more important. The result wasn't the be all and end all. I just talked about we lost one game in 14 months, so I'm proud of that. Yeah. And you should be proud of that, as you were part of that. But the main thing is developing players. And when I look back at that team or squad of players who I had over the 14 months I did it, there was quite a few. There's a big percentage that had a career, you know. And there's people that, like Ronnie Gould, who I thought was an absolute certainty to have a good career. It never happened for. But some of that comes down to resilience of the person, and some of that comes down to luck. Luck plays a part, but I can see you and Aaron now, and when we used to go into games, just looking at that as a front two, you think about it, is that no wonder we didn't only lost one game for 14 months. We scared people to death. You know, we built a team around that, but looking at it as a spirit, and I knew I was always going to get goals and I was going to get excitement. So it was, I really thought this job was easy for 14 months, losing one game. I thought, God, this is an easy job, but it proved later to be a little bit more difficult.
And do you see things in players, like, so you see a youngster, what sort of stands out for you when you see a player? Do you think, what makes you think he's got that, he's got this? What sort of?
Yeah, I still do that. You know, part of my job is to look over the academy, to know what's coming through the academy. They start, as you know, 9 to 16, but you know, I go and watch the babies and I will spot. But from the age of 12 onwards, I start to get to know the people that are coming through. And I say the same thing to the coaches now. I think you've got to be careful you don't get too many computer coaches, so they become the most important person themselves. It's about the players being the most important people, and when I go and look at players now, it will still tick a box in my head if they do something that's imaginative. You know, if Dean went and watched the player, Dean would come back and say, cool, he won an header, or he made a tackle. And I would say, yeah, he got 3 nutmegs. You know what I mean? It's different what you see in it. And I know it takes the all-rounded player, but it takes different... I think in any team you have 3 players that are similar to me as a player and as you as a player. So they maybe 4 sometimes, but the other 7 would have to do your work. And I remember, Dean Smith playing in midfield with me, and he said, "I'm only here just to win the effing ball and give it back to you." But I always think there's a strength. I always used to talk to people who say, "I'll tackle in my face, I'll head the ball, I'll do this." I say, "Yeah, but you take the ball wherever you are on the football pitch under pressure." It's a different way, and football's built by different people, isn't it? But what will always catch my eye first will be the exciting bit, and then I will look to see if someone says, "Oh, he don't do anything defending," I say, "Well, if he's a 7, 11, 10, I'm not really worried." You know, you look at Richie's team now. You have to be the first press, which is not. You don't really have to tackle. You try to tackle, but really doing is Kelman or Drinan will set that first press, and everyone comes around it, and we win the ball back. So there's the eye press now is a big part of the game. But when I look at Richie, he's got traits of how I did it. He lets people express themselves. He wants them to do a job. Don't get me wrong, but he wants, especially in the top third. Yeah.
So you think from the youth team, it kind of give you that analysis to find your formula when you stepped up into sort of the first team, Ronan?
Look, I could sit here and say honestly now, when I took the job at 34, I didn't think I was ready because I'd been a bit fast-tracked. You know, I can remember walking out, signing for Brighton, and Tommy giving me a letter as I left the club, believe it or not, with a job offer to say, if you want to retire at the end of the season, there's a job here for you. And when he gave me it, I thought that's a bit strange because he knew I was doing my B licence. I thought that's good, nice to have in the back pocket. And then I went to Brighton, and we didn't lose a game at Brighton all the time I was there. And then they offered me another year's contract, but I knew in my heart that I'd finished. So then, once I come in, as I say, I was learning. Like as I say, I can't place. I think you might have been the first year.
Yeah. I was really young.
First year, you was your first year. So you were learning, but I was learning on. But what I had is that I played in the Premier League. I had respect from the players because I played in the first team at 100 games, and I could still join in training in them days. Yeah, which I used to enjoy. And Richie's the same now. He still joins in. He's a little bit older than I was at the time, but I still had that in my back pocket that I could always pull out. So I had respect to start with, but you have respect for a while as a coach. But what you've got to be able to do is when you ask the question or you're tested by a player, you've got to have the answers. And I've always said this, if the answers could be different for me to you, because you see the game differently, but you give your opinion. And I always used to say, I always made players by guided discovery. So you guide them into it, they ask you a question and then they go and discover it themselves. I think it sticks in your mind a lot longer then. If you just tell them, command style, do this, do that, do this, do that, I think that loses people. And I think in modern game especially, maybe for me, I'd come away, I've been in teams where I was told what to do and how to do it, and I needed guided discovery myself, so I sort of carried that through my career. And I took that into being an assistant manager with Paul Brush and into the first team. You know what I mean? So it was a good learning curve.
What was the first team manager's opinion of me?
It's a real funny one because I think we sat down. I think it was it might have been your second year, it might have been your first year, and you'd gone across to the first team a few times. So if I would put players across, you was one of the players that I always put across. I can remember sitting in an office downstairs in this stand, in the east stand, and there was Tommy in the chair, there was me. Well, I was sat in the middle. There was Len Cheese, right?
Len.
There was Paul Brush, Paul Clark, and Tommy was questioning your suitability of being in and around the first team because he felt that you didn't show as much when you crossed over the line. So I can remember going around, and I'll tell you what the people said. It come to Paul Clark first. He said, look, if it was me and making the decision, I'd give him a 6-month contract to keep him on his toes. Paul Brush, who I thought was next, I thought he's going to be massively on Jabbo's side and help me here. He went, I'm in the same opinion as Paul. I think that it comes across, and then it come to me. So Tommy's sitting opposite me like that, and I went, I'll give him a 2-year contract. I said, if you ain't going to give him a 2-year contract, every team we play against will give him that 2-year contract. And he said, I always remember this because it happened. He said, if you were sat in this chair, would you make the same decision? And I said, yes, I would. 100%. I said, because he will make it. He will have a career. He will be a good player within the English system. Then Cheesewright, who I thought was very much Tommy's man, turned around and went to Tommy. He works with him every day, pointing at me, listen to what the boy's telling you. And then from there, when you went over, there was not so much pushback, and you started to find your feet. And I knew you as a character, and I knew you was quite shy, and you needed to get into a scenario where going over there would have been a quite high pressure in your head to start with. But it would get easier and easier. And that season, you end up starting at the Millennium Stadium and scoring a goal. So I feel I was proven right. I didn't think any of them ever wanted to get rid of you, but they was trying to find an answer to them. And I think that the different way of managing, Tommy was a little bit more of command. Paul Clark was a little bit more command. And I think you needed a little bit of a softer touch to get the best out of you. So that opportunity for me come with like working with Paul, when I could work as an assistant manager alongside, and obviously manager. And I because I'd had you since you was 16, I think I knew where your buttons were to push. But it's different to how people, again, I said it earlier in the conversation, people's difference of opinion about different people. Tommy was a defender. Paul Clark was a defender.
True.
Paul Rush was a defender. So they don't see your plus points. I was a attacking midfielder, so I see that. But you've got to be, I've got to also see the good in good defenders, whereas they've got to see good in good attackers. So you've got to do it both ways.
So there's that bit of luck then, we could say, that you get. Luckily, fortunately, you end up being my manager in the youth team. Then you had that sort of the middleman to the gaffer at the time to sort of like speak.
Yeah, that luck, we all need it. We all need it. I mean, I needed it. 14, couldn't get in anywhere because I was too small. Went to Exeter and had my luck there. They loved me. Here it was that you had people that trusted you below the top half. They learned their trust with you. But I think that every manager and every coach is going to be different. I think the best coaches see both sides. You're always going to see one side better. I'm always going to see more advantage in you than I did in Billy Jones, even though I know Billy was a great player as he went forward. But I would see more plus points in you than I would in him, and that may be a little bit of luck that you needed that's give you the career that you've had. But for me, it was obvious. I mean, the youth team, as you say, you beat everybody up. You were winning games left, right, and centre. You was one of the main reasons for that. So if you didn't get that bit of luck of getting your pro contract here and moving on, that would have come elsewhere, in my opinion.
Yeah, because I said before, sometimes when you're a youngster and you're just thrusted over into the first team scenario, it's almost sometimes it's where you want to be, but then when you're hearing again how Tommy Taylor was, is very commanding, very on it. You make a mistake, it's on you. As a youngster in them times, it was a little bit like, oh, I'll be with the youth team. So suddenly it's harder to express yourself.
Yeah, it's hard to flourish under that situation. And I say, Tommy come from an era where most of the managers I had was Tommy Taylor-like. Yeah. My bit of luck was that I had Glenn Hoddle manage me for 3 years. And all of a sudden he's telling me I'm defending too much. And I'm thinking, what's this man on about? All my career I've been told I can't defend and don't defend. But he was talking about not coming back over the halfway line and be the first port of attack. That was my bit of luck. So it took me from being a League 2, League 1 player to being a champ in the Prem. And that was luck. It was luck because, when I signed for Ozzy Ardiles and Glenn Hoddle come in. And then but we all do it. And then different people will see your strengths and weaknesses. But there was a lot more command type managers. I mean, I played from 1982 to 2000, and trust me, I've been in there where there was, and if you didn't have that resilience, someone said to me, "What do you need to be a professional footballer?" I said, "The first thing you need is resilience, whether that's resilience against criticism, resilience against the crowd, resilience against having a niggle and then coming back and playing, and resilience to keep going out there and believing what you're doing is the best. And you've got to have that self-belief. And I think that at the start you didn't have that fully, but I think that you built that, and then that took you through. I mean, you played 600 games. I checked today, 599 actually.
Yeah, 700 in total over all the competitions. But yeah.
You don't do that without, that ain't luck. But sometimes you need luck at the start to be found and to be polished. Whoever's doing, sometimes it's who's doing the polishing, that's where the luck. You had a polisher that liked what you provided. If you'd have had a different type of polisher, you might have not got where you were, but I think you would have come through anyway.
So now, first team manager, Gaffer. So how did you find that? How did you find that transition from youth team to?
It made me laugh when you said Gaffer there, because I can remember the first thing I did in a meeting. I'm not sure if you remember this, because I was Lingy to everybody. I'd been youth coach, Lingy, assistant manager Lingy, and I come in. And I had a phone call from Barry when he sacked Paul after the Huddersfield game, and it said that we don't really want you. We feel that we need a more senior. We don't want to move it down to someone again, but you've got a job if the new person come in. And I just said to him, I disagree. I'm going to have to prove to you that I'm the right person. And he went, well, I didn't expect that answer. I said, well, that's how it is.
What gave you that confidence to come with that
answer? You know me, I'm a little bit, I don't know, cocksure. I don't know cocksure. I had confidence in my own ability. And I'd seen people do it. I knew what I wanted to be. Now, did it come to a 36? I've been coaching for 6 years. Most of that was, I think I think I was on my A licence at the time. But I knew that I could get people to follow me and do what I wanted them to do. Did I think I was ready in a coaching sense? If I looked at what my coaching background was, did I have enough experience? Then probably not. But because my belief was more to get the best out of people, and the coaching was secondary, I felt like I was in a good place. And when you said about the gap, because I remember we had a £5 fine for anyone that called me Lingy at any time. He was paid it more than most, actually.
I still owe some now.
But what it was is that, because I still joined in the training, and that was the hardest, because you're in a game situation, a quick pass, and then Lingy, and then every time Dean used to write on the side of the pitch, Dean Smith, and give us all the fines. But changing, as I said in that meeting, and I meant it, was that whether I'm doing it for 1 day, 1 week, 1 year, I can remember the meeting, I want to be known as the gaffer, because I think that I had managers previously that were called whatever they wanted to be called. Paul Brush chose to be called Brushy, which I disagreed with, but that's his right. And I had to, there was people, you knew me as a youth team coach, but didn't really know me as a player, but there was also people in that dressing room that played with me. So I had to somehow drive that wedge between us to have that authority side. That was difficult to start. It was hard for me because I was a bit of a Jack the lad and liked to laugh and a joke. Sometimes I could do it. If I'd done it as a player, I was a youth team coach, it didn't really have a negative effect on people. But sometimes if I was taking the piddle out of people, I didn't realise I was the manager sometimes, and it hurt a lot more. So I had to adjust. Yeah. It took me time, but I just wanted to go at it. Something that 34 become a youth coach, 35 become an assistant manager, 30. I didn't see it quite happening like that. But 15 years later, I was still doing it. So something went right. Yeah. But luck, you want to believe it. There's luck massively in that. I always remember that first game. I remember going to Carlisle on the Tuesday. We left on Tuesday morning. We went up to Carlisle. They were bottom. We were second bottom. If we'd lost that game, I probably wouldn't have got the next game. So you said I helped you with your career. Yeah. Now, payback. You got the goal. Yeah. Got us 3 points.
Last minute as well. Right at the death as well.
I can remember jumping on Tatey, who was and then realising, looking at the picture after, thinking I'm the manager, I shouldn't be doing that, really, in the first game when we were bottom of the league. But it was that elation of the win, but the elation of the person who got the goal as well, because you felt like you come through together. And we was in a sticky period, you know, we was in a real sticky period. I mean, I remember Sarzi was on the bench that day. He came on, Sarzi, in the game, and he played his debut the game before. I think he was 16 at the time. And it's amazing how them things, you know, sometimes there's a karma in this world. I do believe that, and I think that day was a karma for all that we had together that give us that, and that gave me the chance to keep having a little bit longer. And I can remember Barry picking the phone up. It was Christmas Eve, no, Boxing Day. No, it wasn't. It was Christmas. It was Christmas week actually, and he phoned me up, and he phoned me on the landline in the main office here, and he was abroad in Mauritius, and he said, "It's Barry." I said, "We won the game." He said, "I've got good news for you. I want to give you an 18-month contract." So that was like, wow, because I was always on a short reign, small caretaker, and that gave me that next bit of authority. And I think the big thing for me was fetching Dean in as my number 2 at the end of that season, that allowed us to flourish going forward.
Yeah, and like I said, give you that balance with his sort of rigidness and your sort of like maverickness, and it gelled and made the team do really well.
Yeah, I didn't think it's because it's quite. When I look back now, all my assistants were defenders. I don't know if that was by design. Dean was a pal. Yeah. I knew he looked at the game differently. I knew that he loved coaching. I could give or take coaching. If I'm honest, I ain't scared to say that. I would always be there on a Thursday and Friday. You know as well as I do. On a Monday and Tuesday, I'd have a walk round. Always there. But I'll give the coaches a chance to flourish. Obviously, Dean flourished from there and has had massive success. But there was different eyes. You know, he needed to be told, and like, so when it was the defensive side of things, it was very, this is how we need to do it and this is how we do it. So he took a lot of defensive work, I took a lot of attacking work, and when we come together, I took most of the work. Yeah. But he still had Dean was always behind me, saying, "What if? Yeah. What if the ball breaks down here? What if my attitude to football was, it won't. Yeah. No. I don't worry about the what if, but you start to realise that the what if is a big thing. So have we got cover in the bag? Have we, you know? And then coach. I loved coaching when it comes to 11v11. Yeah. I just didn't get all this pass drills and all that. It used to bore me to tears as a player and as a manager and a coach. Yeah. So, but some people like Dean, I remember he used to come in, every Monday morning. He'd come and go, "What are we doing today?" I went, "What's your title?" He go, "Coach." I went, "Go and coach him." Yeah. And then he'd come out with his little plan in his little book. Yeah. "Oh, this is what we're going to." And I go, "I don't want to know. Just go and do it. Show me." So yeah, there's that mix. But you know, that little acorn of you getting that goal. You know, it grew into what happened that second season. That second season for me and you as manager and first team player.
And do you think that acorn growing sort of like inspired then for you to further look into sort of the youth team coming up, and then have that sort of like a lot of personnel from that successful youth team going into your first team and creating that environment?
To this day, I have no more pleasure than a young player that comes through the centre. Now, there's 2 reasons for that. One is where I started. So I started coaching over there when I was 30 and become the youth coach. The second part is my own boy, started over there and has had a successful career so far. So I would much rather see 11 players that all come from the academy. And in fact, last year, I writ a team down that we could have done it. We could have done 11, and it wasn't too bad. You know, it would have held its own. I honestly believe that. But you've got to have a mix. It's like now, we're coming to a bit of a crossroads at this football club, in my opinion. Yeah. I feel we need a development team or B team because we've got 36 pros at this moment in time, and I would say that 26 of them are definitely first team ready, and there's 10 of them that could dip onto the bench and that. And we need to provide, the way we're providing the football for them 10 at the moment is sending them out on loan to other clubs, which is a better way than, I believe that after 18 months of being in the youth team, you need to be going out on loan. And what I say that for is because you've probably been in the youth team for 2.5 years then, because you got there if you're going to get a pro in the scholarship, you're going to be in the youth team as an under 16, 15, aren't you? 15 to 18 is too long in a youth team. So all my second years go out now, and I have a lot to do with that, and because I know how them type of things work. Now, would that be easier to have? The best way forward would be to have a B team that plays in non-league, like Colchester do. That would be the best way, in my opinion, because you're giving men's football when they're ready. But it's the way we're doing it at the moment. It's better than not doing it, because if we didn't have the fact that Mike Still's doing a great job of the lone managing of that group, and they're getting first team football, but it'd be much easier if I had my own coach, my own club, or we had our own coach, our own club that is now building them, and you can mirror the first team. I don't think the youth team needs to mirror the first team in terms of systems. I think it needs to mirror the first team in terms of what Richie wants from a player, athleticism, front men shutting down. It's no good not having that, but if he does that within a 5-3-2, the youth team, or 4-4-2, it doesn't have to be mirror. But I think the B team could mirror it, and we're coming to that crossroads of what do we do? You know, I'm talking consistently with the board to say I think you're going to develop players out of that group. It allows you to have continue. Was you a better player, Jab? This is the best way to put it, at 19 to when you were 16? See, I look at it, some players, I think you're maybe a little bit different because you was physically, but I think it allows the run to the litter to come through. People like Nicky Shorey would have been released. It allows me to get my 50-50s at the academy another year. So, for instance, this year we've given 4 academy players a third-year scholarship because that gives them somewhere else. Now, if after 3 years they've not started to dip in or break through, then, but I think that 2 years sometimes is not long enough. I think 3 years you find all the answers and all the. Now you still, no one's that special that they're not going to let go good players, because it happens. It's just natural. They might not be fit, but it still gives me, as I go back to what I said at the start, it gives me great pleasure that when you, Billy, but when you played for me when I was the gaffer, it was easier for me because you'd already worked with me and you knew what I wanted, you knew what my standards were. But it was easier to have that. So that mix was already in there. You've got to get the senior players right that fetch everybody on. And I say, when I look at the squad at the moment, you know, people like Darren Pratley, Omar Beckles, you know what I mean? These kids have got role models, and yous would have had. Yous would have had. You know what I mean?
Danny Brown was one of them for me.
And if their role models ain't quite right, it makes the managers. I always believe a manager's job. Senior players: Gary Alexander, John Mackey, Craig Easton. I still talk to all 3 of them today because they're proper men, proper people. Dean as a filter between me. The job of managing was being managed. If you didn't train properly, John would pick you up and put you against the wall. You know what I mean? Gary, Easty could run for England. It's all Scotland actually. But yeah, when you look back at that team and you look at the mix was really good.
And it's funny you say that because you can see sort of like the way it's transcended into now, how the first teams run, and all the what you're saying, the ideals, your spine there is similar to what we see now.
Yeah, what we're trying to do is, I think as a club, we talk about only employing and releasing 2 people, which is the head coach and the assistant coach. So we don't chuck the baby out with the bathwater. So you get a consistency up there. Now, that means Matt Harold is third in charge. Everything down there stays the same, coaching start. I'm above that in terms of where I sit, and I'm consistent with all of that. But we've got a manager that's brought his own ideas. So it's got to be a mix. And what we believe as a club, what the manager fetches in, and then mix them together.
Amazing. It's like John Mackey, Craig Easton, and Gary Alexander, the same sort of spine, the same sort of 4 H's there.
Yeah.
So is that what you've learnt through our promotion season when we were flying through the league and stuff, and you had that sort of spine? You know, is that how it transcended into now?
A lot of our recruitment, as me and Richie always say, is that you cannot measure character. So we do use statistics to narrow the field. So if we've got 10 players, statistic. See, what I said to you at the start is that it's no good me saying the old way of doing it is the right way. Yeah. Statistics help, but they're part of. Yeah. So there's good in the old, but there's good in the new. And again, I have to mix that. So when we sign players, one of the big characters, one of the big things we're looking for is a character in a player. Now, you cannot see a character of a player off statistics. Yeah. You can't see a character of a player by looking at him on a video. You're only going to go and see that character of that player by going and watching him with your own eyes, or your chief scout eyes, or Mike Steele as the head of recruitment's eyes. Then you say they're losing 2-1, but he's challenging back. Yeah. He's demanding of people around him. If you watch Darren Pratley, for instance, Darren leads by example, doesn't he? Yeah. You know what I mean? He's 37. He does the most distance in 90% of the games. He's a freak in terms of that. Yeah. But he will put his head in and he will put his foot in, and so people. So if that goes through what Richie's got, through what I've got, through Richie, through Paul Terry, through Justin, Matt Harold, through to your captain, through to your vice captain, I can see the traits. I can see how the team is built. Was it by design? No, I don't. But I think if you've got what you are, but I think Richie's got very, very similar thinking in terms of what he wants from a player that I've got. I mean, the saying, I'm going to say this on camera so people know, it's always said that I have the last say on signings, and I've always said that's rubbish. It's rubbish, because the be-all and end-all is I'm only going to fetch players into the club that the manager wants. Yeah. Do I have a say on who I think is the best scenario? Yeah, Richie, we might have a committee, and it ain't this committee where everyone's, it's probably me, Richie, the scouts, and just say, well, what do you think? And you know what it's like, you'll have a list of 6 players, and you'll have a number 1 and a number 6, or a number 1 and a number 8, and you'll end up signing 3 or 4, because 1 and 2 you can't afford, and they've got loads of clubs to go to. 7 and 8 ain't quite good enough, and it'll come from that middle. But, the final thing with a few of them with Richie has been like, well, these are the ones that fit in with the wage structure. Who do you want? If you could pick A or B, who would you want out of the 2? And like something like El Mazzuni, he's like Steve Foster was a big fan, and it kept coming back. He ain't really a 4. I was looking for number 4, and he was more of an 8. So I phoned up Brian Klug at Ipswich and said, look, he said, I've had him since he was 14. He said, a bit like me speaking about you. I've had him since he was 14. Mark, he will not let you down. He's got everything you want. So I come back to Richie and said, Rich, I spoke to Brian Klug and he's telling me to do it. I said, I ain't telling you, Fozzie's telling us to do it. So we had other people in there and he went, go on in, that makes you 51-49, doesn't it? I went, yeah. Then you don't do the job. Now, luck, yeah. I knew Brian Klug, he'd done a bit of work with me at Cambridge. Fozzie loved him. Yeah. So, but I think the principles are the same, is that you're looking for the... Richie's is very much, I mean, he's a great coach, don't get me wrong, he's a lot better than I was as a coach. He's got a lot more ideas, and I think coaches of today probably have, because there's more looking at it. I can remember what I used to do with the VHS, and I stop and start. I had 2 VHSs at home, and stop and start and cut the video on a Sunday night to fetch it on the Monday morning to watch 15 minutes of. Now you've got it instantly. I sat next to Joe Austin at the game on Saturday because he couldn't get down from the stand, so he sat down. He don't often sit next to me, and he's got playback, rollback, and it's like instant, and the world's changing. Players are changing. You can only you have to block information because they can't take too much information. So yeah, it's good.
So Gaffer, so in sort of the way the season's going with the first team, can you see the parallels to sort of the Oxford promotion and that team in that year?
Yeah, as I said, we were talking just there and saying that how that season panned out, how that season finished was, beyond amazing for all of us. I've actually quoted that this year. I think I've been involved in 7 promotions in my career as a player, manager or director of football, and they've all gone down to the last game apart from 1, when people were looking at it and thinking we're just going to go run away with this. But going back to it, look, I mean, the team bonding, the team togetherness, you know, we always knew when we went out there back in 2006 that we had a team that could win games of football. Now, we could win games of football when we were playing good, obviously. Yeah. I think the big thing is, can you win games of football when you're playing medium or bad? Now, it's sometimes difficult to do it when you're playing bad, but you can get a point out of a bad performance. You can get a win out of a medium performance. And I think that's what it's about, because you ain't going to go through a complete 46-game season and be in the good bracket all the time. But you've got to have enough times where you've been good and you've capitalised on it. There's times where you're going to be medium and you've capitalised it by, you know, maybe getting 3 points or 1. And there's times when you can be bad and you can still come away with 1. Sometimes you can be bad and win. You can be that. But I think that's about the characteristics of the side. I said to our players the other day, I was just talking to a couple of them. I said, you remember the person that's on your left and your right of you when you're in a huddle, because they'll be the friends for the rest of your life. And every 10 years, you'll get a text to say, we're all going to meet up, or 5 years, we're going to have a party. And this is what you're building. And I do see similarities. I really do. I see that there's an absolutely togetherness. I mean, George Moncur, I think, said the most poignant thing this year when he said that he's been at numerous football clubs, but he's never seen an atmosphere and togetherness like it. You can't force that. We can all, you know, we want to be strong. We want to be. It's the togetherness, and I share my working week between the training ground and the ground. And I love being over the training ground. I'm the oldest player. I'm the oldest person over there, which I didn't realise the other day. I still think I'm 25 sometimes, but I am the oldest person over there. But the atmosphere and not just outside. I don't always go. Well, I hardly ever go outside to watch the training, if I'm totally honest. But the inside of the lunchtime and the they call it football banter, and I think that's the thing that you miss as when you start becoming a player to becoming a manager. You know, I often laugh when I was the manager and you walk in and it go quiet and say, I'm here now, I'll be gone in a minute. But the banter and the camaraderie, and then I think if you look at the teams, you know, goalkeeper, Vigouroux, best in the league, Ling, best in the league. You know what I mean? You look at Lockwood, you know, fullback. We got fullbacks that, you know, handle the ball, centre halves that are both solid and good, Johnny and Gabby, you know what I mean? And you look at it now and it's probably our first choice would be Beckles and Happy. Beckles that we brought in 28, 29, 30, the same as John coming. Dan Happy has been the best he's been. You know, he's always good talk. And Gabby, you know what I mean? Gabby was, people said to me about Gabby's inabilities to pass the football. I said, but he's the best defender I've ever worked with, and he was tough. Picked the teams up you know, putting the teams together on a Friday. No one wanted to be against Gabby. No one wants to be against Omar Beckles. No one wants to be against Darren Pratley, Craig Easton. You know, you know what I mean? There is similarities. You know, one thing I suppose is that we had strikers that got the majority of the goals. This year, the number 9s, I think they've got 6 between them in the league, which is unusual. But we've had other components. So I look at our front players as the 7, the 11, the 9 and the 10. And if you look at all 4 people that play them 4 positions, the players that have played in them positions, you've got enough goals. You know, Theo, you know, you've got Paul Smith, you've got George Moncur, you've got Rio Sartorio. If you're playing them 4 positions, what I said 4 to you before and 7, when I said 8 and 3 to start with, didn't I? And I changed my mind to 4 and 7. That was thinking about our team. We actually have 4 players that I would say are maverick-like players. We've got number 9. Both our number 9s have got goal scoring in them. Kelman and Drinnan. Drinnan's proved he got 15 goals after last season. I think Kelman will go on to have a great career. I think there's goals in him. But look at that creation. You know, we had like we had Gary, we had Stiller, we had Shane Tudor, Wayne Caldon, Mavericks. You know, You know, when they were Mavericks, he used to chop and chop and chop and chop, didn't he?
Where do you see the academy in the future? Where do you want to go? What are we aiming towards?
Yeah, it's a great question, Jab, to be honest with you, because the proper thing for it is to continue as it is, and to keep producing boys. One of the things, there's been a lot of talk about the possibility of a new training ground, but the main thing for me is that the academy doesn't come out of Leighton, because the reason we're so strong is where it is. So you get all the raw nuggets from around the area.
Yeah.
Some of the boys need to get there on the bus or the train without their parents. So if we're talking about possibly going out to Brentwood, you can't. The academy needs to stay there. We can play games out of Brentwood, don't get me wrong, but the academy and the strength of our academy is the area it's in. Yeah. I know by talking to you, me and you have both come from a background where you had to fight to get what you wanted. You know, there was no silver spoon for me, and there's no silver spoon for you. And I think that makes a difference. I do think that people that come out of council estates or come out, it doesn't mean everybody comes out of that situation and they will instantly make it, but it does give you an edge. You know, I knew, and I think it stays with you for life. It builds what you are.
With that resilience,
that,
you know.
Yeah, and we I would like to say one day that we may go to be a Cat 2. We're currently a Cat 3, but I'm not over convinced that needs to happen. We've got to be the best Cat 3 that we can. Yeah. Last year we was the 6th best in terms of minutes played on the pitch, and I think that's where you got to judge it. Yeah. Minutes on the, all right, players coming through. Financially, it makes sense. Financially, it fetches revenue in. Always does with transfers. Transfers are bigger if they play in the first team. As I said, Alzati, them type. You know, Karoma, Karoma, and it's got to make financial sense for the business model to work. So that's what I have to do in terms of the business model to the chairman. It makes sense, but I'm very happy with where the academy's at and what it's doing and how it's working. I just think that the dream is to have that second academy, if I what I call it, but the 18s to the 21s, to give us sometimes I think the jump from 18, the academy, straight into the first team. I'm not saying some can't do it, there will be players who can do it, but I think that the most productive ways is if we could have a B team, under 21s, either connected to an on-league club or being a B team playing in the B team league, which I would do as well. I'm not the first option floats my boat more, if I'm honest, because I just think it teaches kids to win games of football. That's where the build needs to be. I don't think to make your Cat 2 between 9s and 16s, I'd rather emphasis the spend on creating that 18s to 21s. So to give the academy, I think that gives the academy more strength and more a natural ebb and flow through a career. Yeah. I know a lot of clubs do it. I know the top clubs do it. I go and watch 21s football and it frustrates me sometimes. There's a bit. There's 11 Mavericks instead of only 3 or 4, but it's in a good place. You've got good people there. We're just changing a few staff over at the moment. We're getting to the stage now where we're nearly set going forward, and all I know, whenever I go over there or whenever I'm talked about, I like it when I get a phone call from a club that's chasing our products, because it means that, not because of the finances of it, the finances are good, don't get me wrong, but it just proves to me that we're doing things right. Yeah.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure having this conversation with you again. It's brought back so many memories. Thanks for joining us here today.
Jab, look, when I looked you up this morning on Wikipedia and it said that you're 40, I was gobsmacked, because obviously my image is you as a 16-year-old. No, you as a 17-year-old, 18-year-old, but you're still the same, Jab. Whenever I see you, there's a smile on the face, a warm handshake, and the word gaffer. You're still thinking you're going to lose a fiver. I'm calling it a long name, I think. Cheers, mate.